Hello. We are live with Behind the Design with OPEX coaches, Brandon Gallagher and Daniel Persson. Today, Daniel is taking us through a couple of sample designs that he has recently shared on Instagram. You can find them on his page. They're also duly posted to the Coach RX page, and they've been getting a lot of love. And so we thought we'd talk about those today. Brandon does not have a new podcast episode coming out this week because he's doing some planning.
Got a bunch planned though. I got
bunch of planning for a
bunch of stuff planned for the next 2 months for the podcast. I was feeling a little bit sick last week, and I was trying to figure out like the next couple months, and I was decided to just like end the season there. Got 8 episodes planned for the next 2 months coming up. I got some exciting stuff, so I'm looking forward to it.
That's awesome, dude. We all three got hit progressively. Daniel got it first, then I got it, and you got it. So we all got
Mine
hit.
wasn't really like a sickness. I just got like super fatigued last week. I don't know what it was. Like it was like I was sleeping. Like I literally slept. I can't even tell you the last time I slept past like 7 o'clock, and I slept till like 9:30 on Saturday. And I just didn't even go to the gym. I ended up working out downstairs, but it was just one of those weeks for me, and I just, yeah. So.
Well, you needed it clearly, so that's
exactly.
good. That sleep helps. Okay, I will bounce out and share screen, and I'll be here if you guys need me.
Cool. Looking forward to discussing some Coach Daniel programming.
Some design, yeah. It's yeah, I thought it would be fun to go through these because we've posted them on Instagram, and they've, as Kenny said, got some love. So might as well have a discussion about.
What's your any thoughts on 26.1?
Oh my God, it's it was so funny because I posted like 2 weeks before something about how to like tips to when it comes to program design for masters athletes. And one thing that I usually stay away of is like high volume, low percentage knee flexion or squatting. And especially like dynamic ones, which would be like wall balls, box jumps, and thrusters. And then like I think it was like 2 weeks after that post, they announced the 26.1. It's like, oh my God. I will have some cleaning up to do after this with my masters athletes.
Did you have a lot of people like in your clientele do it?
I've had more before, like CrossFitters do it, but let's say I had at least 15 or 20 clients do the workout, and gotcha. It's quite obvious the legs are gonna go, and and they did. I had one girl. She was like, I'm not sore. I have like pain. I can't move. So she had to because she moves a lot in her work. She actually had to call in sick for work because she couldn't move like after the work. Yeah, and it's like, well, it's a tough one with the box jumps and wobbles.
Yeah, that sounds. I always pay attention. I haven't really done an open workout in a long time, but I always pay attention because I think it's like interesting to see where they go with it, how they change things, how they kind of utilize it. Because I do think it's important to see the type of like workouts that they create to test people each year.
Yeah,
I think it also gives you a good idea or understanding of, how you can build in different types of, because they do get pretty creative, and I think they also do get just like, wall balls and box jumps. That's all you had to do, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you can kind of see how in the open with that sort of testing environment, like you don't need that much to test somebody. It like literally it can be something as simple as like wall balls and box jumps, or it can be, these more advanced workouts. And I was just I had a memory pop up on Facebook of the first CrossFit Open I did in 2016. And the workout was the overhead walking lunge workout.
Yeah.
I don't remember the rest of it, but I remember it was like overhead walking lunges. I believe it was like chest to bar or pull-ups might have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that whole thing because I haven't done an open workout or been in that environment in a little bit, but I always check to see what the sessions are.
It's also like a good reminder, because I see a lot in the CrossFit community and from CrossFit coaches when they try, or when they jump to like program design or design workouts. Usually they tend to make it like super complex.
Yeah.
And then you look at the games or CrossFit Open, and as you said, it was like box jumps and wall balls. It's not that you have to have 5 different exercises or make it super complex. Still, you can make a fun and engaging workout out of it. So I think it's also a good reminder for CrossFit coaches to just have a look at the Open and realize that it's usually less complex than what the average coach designs.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I would imagine, like from my experience, and then obviously like with the concept of the Open, and if you're not familiar, I don't know that most people wouldn't be familiar with the Open, but if you're not familiar with the Open, it's like a 5-week event, I think, right? 5 weeks?
3 weeks now.
Oh, it's only 3 weeks. Okay, so
Yeah.
3-week event that they have workouts that everybody in the community does, and then they post it after it gets judged, and it kind of I don't know. I guess maybe it has changed, but I remember when I was like heavy into it, it's what qualified you into like the regionals, and the regionals qualified you into the actual games themselves. So, is that still the process that it goes through?
Yeah, kind of. They tend to change it over the years now. Like every year, there's kind of a new thing, but it's basically Open, quarterfinals, semifinals, and then the games.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Is
The games were here in Albany, where I live, last year. I didn't get a chance to go, but it was they had the games here, and I know CrossFit's like big in this community because it kind of started actually right over next to me was like one of the very beginning CrossFit gyms called Albany CrossFit with Ackerman, I think his name is, right? Jason Ackerman.
not sure. I don't get a
Yeah, I
chance
don't know.
to
But I think he was the one who had like the first gym over here by me, which is literally like a 5-10 minute, not even 10-minute walk down the street from me.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting thought, and yeah, so the Open's like a weekly thing, and you would by concept you would hope that it's a little bit more simple, so because it's meant to be for everybody. It's meant to be something that everybody can like test themselves yearly and kind of see the progress they're making. So you'd have to imagine something that like that's going to be a little less intense, a little more focused on just having fun and testing things in a less skilled environment.
I do like it though, because it's like we've discussed in previous episodes that sometimes workouts get too complex, and then you like in a simple workout, or like a workout with box jumps and wall balls, you can't hide. It's
Yeah.
just like um, how bad do you want it, and
Mhm.
what's your true capacity in terms of like performing that workout. So there's usually like they want more skill or more interesting workouts sometimes, but I think it's fun to start that and start with just kind of pure performance, or like pure capacity,
Yeah.
not too much complexity, because if you're going to make it to the games, you're going to do well in these workouts anyway. So
Yeah, and I
it's
think most of the time it's usually like the very first workout is usually the most inclusive, I would say.
yeah.
Like because it's the first week, everyone's trying to, get their footing. So that's usually the most simple, sometimes the hardest one too. Like so more like most grueling, I would say. Um, but yeah, with what we're going over today kind of being, you know, your own program design, does any of this have any carryover into that, or is this more just concepts of ideas you've had in the past in regards to just generally training an athlete of yours?
So this is it's a lot of, if we talk about like mixed modal stuff, where obviously come from a CrossFit background and coach a lot of CrossFit
Mhm.
athletes. It's a lot of it applies to CrossFit, but there's concepts that could apply to um, like strength and conditioning, or depending on what kind of athletes you coach.
Mhm.
Um, but I usually think about, if we have strength and conditioning or energy systems, and then you have the sport specific expression. And for the athletes that are doing Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, and CrossFit, I'm responsible for both the energy system training and the sport specific expression. Whereas I also have clients where they have a sport specific coach and I'm just the SNC or responsible for energy system training.
Yeah.
And so we'll have examples on like we have an example on getting back from injury with some squatting and sled push, as well as really like CrossFit style training. And that will be the first one if we go from left to right with these examples. So these are not a training week. I just put them in the calendar to have them in front of us when we discuss them. So it's not that we go from Monday to Sunday. It's one workout, one example design, and we'll talk about that, and then we'll jump to the next one.
Cool.
So the first one would be something that I've used quite recently in a competition prep, where the thought behind it was, and there's a difference between, in my mind, there's a difference between deload and comp prep. And when we discussed this previously, we talked about like gaining confidence, preparing you for the competition, and the difference from a deload would be, deload is just like a pullback week where we invest in the next training block or trying to get rid of some fatigue to get you just ready for next training block. Whereas with comp prep, there's similarities in terms of we might drop, especially volume, but sometimes some intensity. But still, we need to do things that makes you perform on that given day. So there's a slight difference between deload and comp prep, and I usually get that question from my clients, like, what's the difference? Because they sometimes think that they should do a deload before the competition, and it's kind of right, but it's also, you need to keep in mind what you need to do. And this session is a quite good example on that, because then we're thinking about how to practice competing and what demands do we have on that specific day. So it's A, B, and C, so 3 pieces, but they go, you're going to go straight from A to B into C, and the big movement here is the snatch. And the workout starts with you jumping on the rower, 5 minutes easy pace, and then you're increasing the pace to medium pace, and then 2 minutes hard pace. With that, the thought is to start raising the heart rate and accumulating some fatigue before going into the next piece, which would be establish a 1 rep max snatch. And with every attempt, you need to do, like, every attempt costs 5 calorie air bike. And why I design it this way is that coming off the rower with 2 minute hard pace, one, we're practicing getting the heart rate down, staying composed and kind of find yourself within that 10-minute gap as quick as possible, find you in the situation of you building to a 1 rep max snatch. And then having every attempt cost 5 calories with the air bike is a way for me to, one, have the athletes practice not taking too many attempts within that 10-minute time. Because sometimes I see athletes, when they have 10-minute window or a given window for lifting, they do so many attempts and they almost get fatigue at the back end of that time slot, because they've done like small jumps and they just go and go and go, and the jumps and the attempts are not as pre-planned as they could be. So they just kind of wing it. As soon as they make the lift, they make the new decision. So, and this, I think this is also a consequence of me being a remote coach, because I need to build in things where I, with the format, coach them and put them in a situation where they need to be aware of, or not being too reckless in terms of how many attempts they do, because the air bike is going to punish them with the 5 calories. So I think this is think about it. It's also a consequence of me being a remote coach and trying to design formats that helps them or kind of pushes on things that I really think is important within this piece.
It also gives you a little bit of a barrier because you can't, like, again, you're not there to watch, and
Yeah,
you don't want them taking, rather than saying like, I don't want you to take 10 attempts, it's like I'm just gonna not allow you to take 10 attempts. It's like I'm
yeah.
gonna put something in that limits them, and I love doing that as well. I think that's great.
And also with the bike, I think it's, if you think about one key thing during comp prep, which is confidence. If we have something like a 5 calorie bike and they hit 225 snatch, when we get to the competition floor and they don't have that bike, it might be that they get a bit more confidence in, like, I did hit this, but then I also did X amount of calories on the bike. So just creating that kind of suboptimal context where they perform and they can bring that, because during the competition they're going to be nervous or have a bit shaky legs, but then they can just lean back on that. They, okay, I did this 225 snatch with the air bike, I should be fine. Or at least I try to give them some confidence and some tools to bring to the competition floor, more than just like energy system, strictly like training them in
Yeah.
that sense. And then when they're done, getting straight into 5 minutes where it's going to be um, 3 snatches on 60 kilos and then 6 bar facing burpees. And the point here is not to go all out or have it as an AMRAP. And I'm usually quite careful how I write. Like if I write a 5-minute AMRAP, it's almost like, doesn't matter for some athletes what I write below in the instructions, because they've seen the 5-minute AMRAP, and that means as many rounds and reps as possible, and they'll just get after it.
Mhm.
And the point here is just having a 5-minute clock after the 10 minutes are done, where they practice fast singles on the bar. So even if they could hold on to the bar with like a touch and go snatch, and this guy that I designed it for, I know that he probably could hold on, but the point was for him to practice fast singles and staying smooth on the burpees, and really important thing that the last round should look the same as the first one. So it's not him just getting after it, it's more of practicing pace and technique on the burpees. And because sometimes that we, in especially like in CrossFit, we think about when we say skill, we think about snatch, handstand walk, ring muscle
Muscle ups,
ups.
yeah, muscle ups,
Yeah, it's, but there's a skill in being smooth at bar facing burpees. There's a skill in cycling box jumps. There's a skill in everything. So yes, we have like skills which we think about as skills in high skill movements, but I think sometimes it's forgotten to practice like the bar facing burpee, being super smooth in that, and uh, not always to be like increase the cadence or be super fast. It can be just getting rid of some leakage or making it cost less. So we almost can, if we had this piece in competition, like stay smooth on the burpees and attack the bar with a touch and go, then back to, so the bar facing burpees almost becomes like a rest or a space where we reload for attacking the barbell for the next round. So this is a piece I used recently to prep an athlete for a competition. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I like. There's two things I really like, and I think you kind of just already spoke about them a little bit, but I think one of the things in competition athletes that, and especially in this environment, is understanding how, like, I think knowing your limits, but knowing like how not to get there at certain points. And I think like the first piece I love, and I actually use something similar to this in regards to people that I work with, because I want people to know what an actual easy pace is and what a medium pace is and what a hard pace is. And I think a lot of people think conditioning like pedal to the floor, I got to go 110 miles an hour or else it's not conditioning, right? And I think when you give people set parameters around an actual easy pace, and this, like, soon as I see this workout without you even like explaining it, if I was just to you can't see me covering it, but I'm covering like part of it with my hand. Like, even just seeing like 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes would make me personally think like, okay, like I'm probably going to get into a faster pace regardless. That's 12 minutes total. So I'm gonna have to move for 12 minutes. And then that last 2 minutes is going to be a little bit shorter. So I'm probably going to be able to go a little bit harder, right? Which, with something like that, even written from the beginning, that would make me think that in those intervals, I'm going to want to take it a little bit easier. One, because it's 12 minutes long, and two, because there's different intervals, and I'd want to improve the pace throughout that time with the time going down. And I think that teaches people, okay, well, like if I know I can row, make it easy, 100 calories in X amount of time, I wouldn't want to go at that pace at the very beginning, knowing I can only do that pace for 3 minutes, right? Like, and you have 12 minutes of work. You have to really understand your pace. You have to understand what you can maintain, which is what I like about the last one as well, which is like you with some of these skills too. I think, again, with bar facing burpees, with these skill movements you mentioned inside of like mixed modal fitness, a lot of it comes down to one, first being able to do the skill, right? That's obviously first, and then obviously adding fatigue and adding it in these different settings. And I think I talked about this maybe a few weeks back with like conditioning pieces that I saw within MMA, but I think most people struggle a lot when you're like, hey, I want you to maintain the pace. Like, I want the first round to look like the last round. That's a lot harder for them than a 5 minute AMRAP, because in a 5 minute AMRAP where it's like, I just want you to get as many as you can, it's going to suck. And you can slow down and you can speed up, and you can slow down and you can speed up. And that's where you start to kind of see people fall into. But when you're like, hey, if you're going to move at this pace, then you have to hold this pace for the entire 5 minutes. That's very challenging for people. And I think these sorts of environments where you introduce parameters or limiters that don't allow them to do that, like within part B that you wrote, it's a great way to keep the athlete smart, to keep them having to think and not put them in a position to fail, essentially, and that's what competition is. And it's not even, competition is obviously having experience within that and feeling confident and knowing like, okay, where do I know I can go? Like, what's my red line, and where do I need to stay to perform my best? And when I need to, I know I can get there. But I also know, like, I've seen a lot of athletes myself just simply not perform well because they do not know pace, and they do not know how to slow down, and they don't know what their baseline is, and they don't know what their red line is. And in some of these sports, again, it's not always a skill thing. So in MMA especially, I've seen so many athletes who were the best fighters in the world for the first round, and then they look like a totally different person after that. And I think learning pace and understanding when to push it and when not. And these are some really good ideas, like the way you wrote this. I love it. Really good ideas into introducing that. So
Yeah, and like with pacing, it's hard, and I remember doing it if I let's say I had a one-on-one client when I coached on the floor, or I had a new client in my class. It might be that we did a few minutes on a rower warm up and at, let's say, conversational pace, and uh, I usually what I usually did was like ask them to like, hey, can you just try to stick to this pace? And I kind of flipped the screen so they couldn't see it, but I could see it, and you could see if they tended to increase the pace, slow down. Um, where did they drift in relationship to that pace that I was asking about? And that gave me an idea, like straight away, how am I going to support them
Mhm.
during this session? Like if you had someone where pace just increased dramatically when I took the screen away, I probably should be keeping an eye on and supporting them during the workout, let's say, to give them a good experience on helping them control the pace, and reminding them to slow down if they went out too hot or anything like that, because it's a skill to pace. And
Mhm.
um, yeah, also with having a discussion like I do with my athletes in like as simple as in a burpee, I usually want to speak about performing in gears. So you could jump up, jump down, you could jump down, step up, you could step down, step up, and then you can also have like conversation on like burpees. What gears do we have, and when do we use what gear?
Yeah.
Just to make them confident in how to judge what to, and also give them as clear game plan and strategy as possible when I send them out on the competition floor.
Yeah, and I think also like even with that last piece, you know, anybody who has like real experience in mixed modal fitness, like 6 burpees isn't a lot, right? But it's like, and 3 snatches at 60 kilos isn't a lot either. What is that? Like 100, is that 135 pounds? I think maybe a little bit less.
Yeah, yeah,
But um, individually, those skills are not that, you know, intense. But like then when you add them together in a specific time domain, it's like they become a completely different animal. So it's like you got to
yeah.
understand what it's like to mix things together, what it feels like, how to pace, like that. That's really important. So yeah.
Cool. Let's jump to the next one, which
So this one was more for comp prep. And you said you have kind of like, I see at the top, you have a little bit of like a theme to each of these.
yes.
Cool.
So this is the comp prep one, and now we're going to discuss what I sometimes call as control volume, or a format I use not only on CrossFitters or mixed modal athletes. I use this a lot when, and I know we discussed it a bit with when I went through the design of one of my masters athletes. I think it was like the second episode, where if you look at mixed modal work, sometimes it's a bit hard for coaches, or at least I thought, like, it's sometimes hard to judge how much volume or how many reps are. Let's say we do a piece that's 25 minutes, and how many reps are the client actually going to do, and especially in the beginning when you don't know the client as well. With the ones that I've had for a longer period of time, I kind of can figure out and calculate how many reps they will do. But what I found a lot of times that I want to, especially since I work with a lot of masters athletes, I want to control the volume and know how many intense contractions they will do within a given piece. And so that would be anything else than monostructural or like cyclical work. So the way I usually design it is, well, this piece is every 5 minutes for 5 sets, where at the start of each 5-minute block, this athlete performed 3 to 4 bar muscle ups, 1 rope climb, 30 double unders, 200-meter row at tough pace, and then rest of that time, so whatever time is left of 5 minutes, spend that on the air bike at conversational pace. And what I usually do also is, like, in the warm up, if I'm going to use conversational pace in the session, I have them in the warm up identify the conversational pace and play around with that, so they have a good picture on what that pace should be. And then second piece, it's also 4 different exercises, and then into the rower at conversational pace. And then the first piece is a more pulling bias with some more skill, and then the second piece is more press pattern bias with the rowing then. And with this format, I know that they will work in 25 minutes plus 25 minutes. I also know that I know the exact amount of reps they will do with the bar muscle ups and rope climbs and ring muscle ups and all the contractions that are not cyclical work. So I found this a really useful piece to stay in control of the total volume over the week, and over also being able to backtrack, having a good record on how many reps did we do, and being able to progress it in a good way. So I use this with mixed the athletes, I use it with my like lifestyle clients, and I found it really beneficial to mix monostructural work and body weight exercises and weightlifting in this way to stay in control of the volume.
Yeah. Now you would do both of these in a single session?
Yeah, so she did it with 10-minute rest in between these sets.
Okay,
So
cool.
it was a longer like conditioning piece for her.
Yeah.
So, and this will be for her. It was just like warm up, find conversational pace on the air bike and the rower, and then she had these two pieces with 5 to 10 minute rest in between, and that was it for the day. So
Cool. Now with something like this, obviously, you know, these would be pretty advanced, I would think, for
yeah.
most people, because we're talking about bar muscle ups, we're talking about double unders, rope climbs, ring push ups, shoulder to overhead. I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
And then the burpee shuttle run. So like even with someone who might not be this advanced, you know, probably like what would you think some of those changes might be to make for this for someone who's might not be skilled at double unders or have a
So I would.
situation for like that sort of like bar muscle ups, rope climb, that sort of thing.
So how I use it, let's say I with a lifestyle client, sometimes I use it design as like every 4 or 5 minutes or whatever time interval you have. It might be that they perform some resistance work. So let's say they do, uh, they can do like an upper body piece where they do dumbbell bench press and ring rows, or maybe 2 push pull exercises, or if you want to go with like more just pressing or the pulling, but they do resistance work in a given pattern, and then they might be jumping on a biker, and then a progression could be let's say we have the ring row and some bicep curl, and then they jump on a bike erg. It might be that I progress it for a lifestyle client, like first week they do bike erg, where they get to recover the pulling pattern while on the bike, and then next week we swap it for a rower. So it might be that do exact same volume rep scheme on the pulling pattern, and then they jump on the rower on the conversational pace, just to play around with, okay, as a progression, we're going to use the cyclical work that will tax kind of the same muscles as you use in the resistance work within the piece. So I do play around with it in lifestyle with lifestyle clients a lot as well, and I'd say even more with the lifestyle clients, because they most often don't need to practice AMRAPs for
Yeah.
time. But I sometimes want to make it time efficient and mix in some monostructural work with the resistance work, and then I do this kind of format.
Yeah, I also think like for lifestyle clients, it's sometimes you gotta, especially with their depends on their training age too. Like you can get a lot done with something like this and get a stimulus that you wouldn't necessarily be able to get in like a bench press or a squat, because they just don't have that like central nervous system drive. So it's like instead of having them do something where they're exerting like max force, you're just kind of getting them to do more work over the course of time. Um, how would I guess one of the other, just this is just like a thought. Obviously, looking at this is, early on when developing those numbers or trying to figure out the amount of numbers you would do, would doing something more time based in the beginning, just to see where they're at after, like, say, 30 seconds of bar muscle ups, 30 seconds of rope climbs, 30 seconds of double unders, 30 seconds of like a row, and just to kind of assess, I guess, in that first week or that first round through to see where they're at. Because I do think I definitely struggle with this in some capacity, um, in regards to like, all right, in a 5 minute set, how much, and I think other coaches might too, is like how much work should be done, like how much time should this be taking someone, how much time should they be on the bike, what's not enough, rep, or what's not enough stimulus, what's too much stimulus. and like maybe figuring out that time piece at the beginning is like, okay, well, if they're doing 2 bar muscle ups in 30 seconds, a rope climb, and then 25 double unders, probably doesn't make sense for somebody to do, 4 to 5 bar muscle ups, 2 rope climbs, 50 double unders, and trying to figure out that piece of like what's enough to get them what they need and still do it the right way. Does that make sense, that question?
Yeah, and I think I usually educate myself in the progression and like the build up. So it might be that I have an every minute on a minute format for the muscle ups, and I want to know how much time does it take you, or like in that given piece, if I want to figure out how much time does a given exercise with a given amount of reps, I might put it in an every 2 minute piece where I want them to just write down when they finish that given exercise, just to know what their capacity and how fast they're going to do stuff. But another thing I usually do is just write out that I want this to be unbroken, because then
Yeah.
it's going to give me a good picture. So as long as you not break this up, I kind of can calculate like how much time does a ring push up take, how much time does a shoulder to overhead take. So with that, sometimes I don't give them the weight. I just give them that I want 5 shoulder to overhead unbroken. If I just want to create a ceiling that's but or if I want to have them practice a given weight, I obviously give that as well. But I think it's having it unbroken and also explaining the purpose of it. It's a good way, because then I can also track or estimate how long it's going to take.
Cool.
But I think that's when speaking to coaches, that's a big thing when trying to estimate rounds, reps, and how long a given piece is going to take is something to practice, and it's something that sounds super easy, but it's forgotten sometimes to practice, because it's can be really tricky to estimate. And to be honest, sometimes when you write an AMRAP, and it still happens to me when I write an AMRAP, I have an idea of how many reps they'll do, and then you look at their score and they're like way over, or you messed up with that
Yeah.
calculation.
Well, I even think looking at something like this, right? For like you're working on a 5-minute interval here,
Yeah.
like you choose the reps wrong, and this very well could turn into like 4 minutes at conversational pace on the assault bike. And you also do it the other direction, and it's like this turns into 30 seconds of recovery on the assault
Yeah.
bike. And then that's completely different workouts depending on the skill and
Yeah.
like obviously the volume you're looking for. So that's why, I asked that question, because I do think if someone is looking to implement something like this, that's going to probably be the main
Yeah.
decision is like, all right, well, how efficient, it doesn't have to obviously be these movements, but like how efficient are they at the movement? What makes sense? How would I even figure out like the rep range to use, and in what capacity, and how much time should I be looking at for a session like this? Because I think this is really useful, and I would like the way you wrote it as well. But yeah.
What you could do also is do like a quick piece where you have them do an AMRAP with slightly less like estimated volume than you want to do, and then you get an average. Let's say you do a AMRAP or do 3 rounds, and you get an average of how long it takes you for 1 round, and then you have that as an estimation to take into this every 5 minutes. But looking at this also with as long as they go unbroken, and they will have time left within that 5 minute window to be on the rower and be on the bike. And to your point, you can definitely use this for less complex movement. So just pick a pattern and
Mhm.
think about it as like, what patterns do I want to do in this session in terms of resistance work, and then also with the monostructural work, do I want to complement that pattern or challenge that pattern?
Yeah, that's
And
a good
the
way to think about it. Yeah.
progression could be going from complementing to challenge. And um, it's a fun way to play around with mixing monostructural work and kind of weight training in a time efficient way, but also with controlling the volume.
Yeah, and I think this is really like, I think that's the important thing about these pieces is once you understand it, you can really start to get so like you can create really cool workouts that you can get exact stimulus from or exact ways to create what you're trying to get from the athlete just by understanding that concept. So I like the way you put that, like compliment or challenge it. That's good.
Yeah, and also with like if you do skills, and let's say you have a master athlete, and they by some reason have problems with high volume ring muscle ups, or a really complex movement that might be a bit taxing for them.
Yeah.
It's so easy to think that, okay, now I want to push this skill, and you could do sets of 5 reps, and then the progression will be just adding reps and volume, but just changing the context in which the skill is performed is so useful. So I posted a piece today about having increasing pace, almost like if we go to the comp rep one, with increasing pace on the rower straight into a set of 5 ring muscle ups. That would like push that set of 5 ring muscle up to a way harder place than if you would do him by himself.
Yeah.
As well as you can go like ring muscle ups every 2 minutes, rest whatever is remaining, and then next week you go with a biker erg, and then next week you swap that biker for a rower, and kind of remember that you also in training can alter and challenge the context in which the skill and or the exercise is performed.
Yeah.
Is a good way to play around with it. And you want a lot of ways to progress, because that's how you keep training fun and engaging. And yeah,
Yeah. 100%.
cool. Next one will be a way, and we discussed this about like mixed mobile conditioning in the previous episode in relationship to SSC for MMA athletes, about nowhere to hide workouts. And
I was already looking at this. I was like, damn, that one looks like it would just suck. Like, there's
yeah,
not really anything else around it, you know?
and I see this a lot of times where especially in the CrossFit space, where athletes complain about workouts not being high skill enough, or too simple, and a lot of times it's just them realizing that there's no way to hide, and this is going to be horrible.
To
And
cope, as they call it, as the kids call it nowadays.
yeah, exactly. So this piece would be, and I use this to kind of the principle I use closer to competition, is start practicing that urgency in transitions, and making sure that we don't leak time anywhere that's where it's unnecessary. And I want them moving all the time. So 9-minute AMRAP, as many rounds as possible of 7 burpee box jump over, 5 toes bar, and 5 calorie ski erg. And almost what I probably would do if I'd be on the floor. I'd be clocking the amount of downtime we have within this 9 minutes. So I want you to move, like be smooth on the box jump over, attack the toast bar, and then ski erg 5 calories. And I rather have you go slower on the ski erg and burpee box jump over, and you moving all the time, and I can see you running to the ski erg if that's far away from the rig, or just being super quick and having that urgency in your transition, because it's so useful to practice that. And I had that discussion in relationship to 26.1 with the wall balls and box jump overs. With the wall balls, if you don't have the capacity to really attack the wall balls, be smart and break them up. And the reply I usually get to that is like, nah, it's going to take so much time. But that depends how you define like breaking them up. It could be that you just drop the ball, take a couple of breaths, stay where you are, and then just pick the ball up and go again. But how breaks usually look like in CrossFit is that you chalk up, look at your friend, you look at the clock, you shake your arms, you find your relative in the audience and be like, this is really tough. And then you grab the ball again. And then you need to make up for all that wasted time by pushing a big set. And then you're kind of stuck in this loop of breaks, just dragging out in time. You just trying to hold on to anything in the transitions, and then you do maybe two big sets. Whereas you could have found a rhythm where you just be break them a bit earlier than you think, and then redefining what a break could be. It could be you just shaking it off, 3, 2, 1, pick the ball up and go again. So just practicing that urgency and making sure that if I have 3 reps left, I don't take shock. I just finish them and then on to the next thing and on to the next thing, because it's just practicing that moving all the time, because it's tough, and especially in mixed modal stuff, because you'll run into small comfortable places, which is the transitions, where you can maybe slow down or take a couple of breaths, where that is gonna affect your performance essentially.
Yeah, I think what's even looking at something like this, you know, like you said, I think having these types of pieces which challenge the things that people aren't actually thinking about, because in most of these sessions, especially if you're going to be competitive, like realistically, that's where you're going to make the most, I guess, room, like, or make up the most room on a workout, right? It's like, how quickly can you transition? How efficient are you at transitioning? Knowing, like, even if I do a ski erg and a rower, right? Like, those are two movements that even when you rest, it's still kind of collecting for you. So it's knowing, like, all right, when I go on the ski erg, I know I can give one big pull and I have like 2, 3 seconds to just chill and get back to the top. One big pull, 2, 3 seconds to get back to the top. And you can find some rest and just become really efficient at knowing, like, all right, I know I'm not going to be able to rest as much on the toes to bar. Like, there's not going to be any rest there because I have to move. But I know I'm going to get, even if the ski erg takes me an extra 10 seconds because of that, right? I get an extra 10 seconds of recovery that the other person's not getting because I'm working on it and I'm understanding that part of it. So these sorts of workouts are like just as important, if not more important, because even like we talked about in your first design, the comp prep is like understanding your pace and knowing, like I said, most anybody could do 5 toes to bar, right? But after the fourth set of 5 toes to bar, it's like, can you maintain it and do it after the other session, the pieces in the session? So, yeah, it's really important. I like it.
Yeah, I'll so don't have a lot of time. I'll jump to the next one, which would be something I use a lot, especially, and this is maybe back to the first design, more on how to build confidence and overcome plateaus. Because with the complex stuff, and especially with the weightlifting, and I've seen this a lot of in the mixed model athlete space, is weightlifting and other skills it gets to people's head. And so what I sometimes do is, so this piece is first, it's just an every minute on a minute, where they get to practice, or this athlete that I designed it for, he got to practice some positioning work. And this is just me, is, for example, the no contact, no feet snatch on the minute 4. So minute 4 to 6. It's a way for me, knowing how he lifts and seeing his videos and analyzing it. I know that this will push him in a good direction and give him good references before going into the 6 sets.
Mhm.
But the piece as a whole is start with a low hang muscle snatch plus an overhead squat, just getting some good explosive hip extension, as well as kind of figure out the overhead position for the day. And then he tends to hit the bar a bit too hard, so he gets to practice some no contact snatch just to make sure he doesn't create any horizontal power on the expense of vertical power. And then he gets to do some slow pull power snatch, because I know that he usually rushes it when like from the floor to past the knees. So just slowing down that portion of the lift, and having him practice some patience off the floor, just so he has a good reference going into the kind of main lifting piece. And in this one, it's 1 legless rope climbs into 20 double unders, and then 2 singles at 90 kilos. And for him, snatch is an exercise which looks like super nice up until about when we get past 85%, and it gets to his head, and all of a sudden he like can't get on the bar. Usually gets into power snatch, and start missing lifts, and we have a technical breakdown usually. And what we found is that it's more of him losing confidence on that higher percentage. And what worked for him and what worked for a lot of my athletes is finding or designing a suboptimal environment, or like back to altering the context in which we lift, just to take a lot of reference away from, because he knows, like, if he's performing 2 reps for 6 sets, with that, when reading that, he will have expectations on how he should perform. But putting a legless rope climb and a double under before, all of a sudden he'll be like, okay, I don't know anything about this format, I've never done it before, and he can leave those references to some extent and just go into this and think about execution, and not worry too much about comparing him to past results, having to struggle with expectations on what I should hit in this format. So, and I sometimes do it just with, it might be that I have a format where they do every 90 seconds for 8 sets, 1 snatch, but before every snatch they perform 10 double unders. So 10 double unders is not going to do anything. If something is for some people, it's going to be nice to do that jumping before going into the snatch, but for the main purpose of it is just taking away some like relation to or taking away the element of comparison to past results or expectations. So creating a design where you can just focus on, or try to just focus on, execution is a really important format, I think, sometimes. And that comes back to, do I allow or enable my athletes to be able to compare themselves or relate to expected things? And that's going back to comp prep. That's usually how I design, because I don't want to risk them losing confidence during that week. So something I use a lot is that we hit, because I usually want to do some heavy lifting, hit maybe 1 set of front squats, and then I use a number I never would use, or never, but maybe a heavy double or a heavy set of 4 reps, just to not use that. If I would do a 1 rep front squat at Wednesday and we're competing on Friday to Sunday, and that front squat doesn't feel as good as they want, that can get into their head going into the competition. But if we do double, they might have less expectations because they have less relationship to that task. So I'm quite careful in how I use. And back to the 10 double unders into a snatch, if we need to hit a heavy snatch before going into the competition, I usually put like 10 double unders into that 1 snatch, because then they can always be like, okay, yeah, but it's not exact same format as 1 rep max. So and like back to this piece: 1 legless rope climb, 20 double unders, 1 or 2 singles of snatch, and
Yeah.
then rest.
I was gonna say, I think with this too, I think sometimes these types of sessions get the best out of athletes too, because it kind of removes that sense of pressure on
Yeah,
yourself to like hit a certain number. I found even in my experience of doing stuff like this, sometimes I'm like, well, I can only hit say 95 kilos or say 85 kilos on the snatch or 90 kilos on the snatch just by itself. And you're just kind of like, all right, well, I don't know if I can get to that number. And it's like you let go of the pressure because it's like, well, I got to do all this stuff before, so I don't know what I'm gonna get, and you end up hitting like close to it, and it allows you to be like, all right, well, if I can hit it during this, and like opens up that little mindset of like I probably can hit it by itself a little bit more or push it a little bit more. So I do find that does almost have that effect on it sometimes as well.
yeah, and what I found like super important as a coach is making sure that we play to win and not play to avoid losing.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Yeah,
it's like when people get into a sport or CrossFit or any sport, there's usually quite fun in the beginning. You get some success, and uh, you have like it's a baseline, and you have everything to win. But as soon as you start achieving stuff, um, you can be in a situation where you put a lot of expectations. Like, I need to hit this number in weightlifting, or else I'm not as good as I used to be, or I used to be the champion, but if I anything less than that would be a failure this season. So I think it's something that we coaches need to deal with a lot, is creating a situation where we play to win and not playing to avoid failure.
yeah,
And it's super important, because it's playing to or playing to avoid failure is such an horrible platform to perform from. It's That's not where you want to be going into a competition, or even in training. You want to make sure that we help the athletes focus on execution and enjoying the opportunity of getting better, rather than like avoiding getting worse, or avoiding failure,
yeah.
or having focus on those things. And I've seen it a lot. And I had powerlifters walking up, like, even warming up, and they have expectations. Like, we have a super nice training block behind us, and walking up to the bar, and they have an expectation on how 70% should feel like now, and it feels a bit heavy, and or heavier than expected, and that then is like destroyed from there, because
Yeah,
they start hesitating whether it's a good day, or if the training was good, or it gets to their head, and then you can see it really get to them when they get to like that top set. So trying to create a situation or context where we help the athletes focus on execution and playing to win is really important, especially in the comp prep.
I agree. Yeah,
So last one quickly is just one I used for, and I used this. I had one guy come back from injury in lower back, and he got injured in the back squat. And so when we started working together, the mission were to kind of reclaim strength training, and especially the back squat. And one format that I used was, and I've used this before as well, with he was doing 5 sets, but it was super scary for him to do like heavy back squats, and it was more still in his head, like he was a bit afraid of doing back squat, than was a problem of like actual him having anything left from the injury. So because he was quite fine, it was just that back squat was a bit scary for him. So he did 3 back squats with 2 to 3 reps in reserve, with 3 seconds down, 3 seconds up tempo, and went straight into like a heavy sled push. And the thought behind it was, and back to like almost the theme of all this, it's there's more to like the actual science and how we progress with sets and reps. So you always need to take the principles, look through the lens of the individual, and this specific format was designed to having him do the back squat, but staying away from the last 2 or 3 reps where he started to feel insecure, or he actually didn't want to go there because he was afraid of technical breakdown or getting an injury. But still, we wanted to get into a place where we could push like heavy leg stimulus. So he did the 3 back squats, also with a 3 seconds down, 3 seconds up tempo. Kept kind of some constraint on the task, so he wouldn't go super heavy. And then straight into the sled push, which we did like leading up to this, and he felt really confident in, and he felt that he could really push. So we used a sled push to kind of take the 2 to 3 reps that was left in the tank and just push them out through the sled, which would be maybe more or lower complexity, not loading the spine, and he could just get after it on the sled. Rest 2 to 3 minutes, getting back on the back squat, getting back into doing that kind of lifting, as well as just straight into the sled push and really pushing it with the legs. So
Yeah, I like that a lot. I was gonna say, like, and I kind of mentioned that a little bit earlier, like, and that's the beauty of understanding like principles and not being uh like, I guess, cornered or having that thought process of like it has to be a certain way, right? Like your goal with that is to get him stronger in his legs. And for some people, like, and this can be like, I like this one because this can be used for general like lifestyle client, or this can be used for an athlete, right? For an athlete, it's that idea of like, hey, we got to get back to a certain point so we can fully perform the movement the way it's intended. For lifestyle, it's like we just want to get strong. Here's a great way that we can do that, right? And the way I kind of look at this is just like, you know, if I'm going to give someone $100, obviously I could just give you $100 bill and it's simple, easy, right? That's the 3 rep back squat at the heaviest that you could do. Or it's like I'm going to give you 5 20s, right? It's like I'm going to still give you $100, but it's split up between a couple things and effort in a different couple ways, and it's going to take a little bit longer, whatever. It might be a little bit different of a, but you're still getting the $100. You know what I mean? You're still getting, at the end of the day, you're still getting the stimulus you're trying to get with pushing the legs and trying to get that overall strength of the lower body. And this is a great way that really translates or transfers in both ends of athletics and lifestyle client. So I like that a lot. It's really good.
cool. Yeah, that's it. I think for me with the program design.
Cool. Can't hear you, Candace.
Sorry, I was muted. I said, awesome. That was fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
What do we have? What are we thinking for next week? Do we know yet?
Not yet. No. Got to talk with Daniel. See.
We'll be in our secret chat.
Yeah.
We need to follow up on the deadlift project.
Oh yeah.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Maybe we'll go over that next week after Daniel and I talk. We got to
That was pretty
have a
epic.
little brainstorm.
Yeah, cool.
All right, cool. Thank you guys. Have a great rest of the week and I'll chat with you soon. Thanks for everyone
Yes, thank
listening.
you,
If you
guys.
guys have comments, please leave them in the video below. We always check. Of course, we'll get the blog up on this and the email out. And both of these coaches' lovely Instagram handles are linked in the description below. If you want to reach out to them, they are always available to chat with. And we will catch you next week.